This episode of Dispatches from Planet Albany is brought to you with support by New York State United Teachers, which represents more than 600,000 educators and school-related professionals in New York. Dispatches is also supported by the public affairs firm O'Donnell & Associates. For more information, check out o'donnellsolutions.com.
I've also declared war on potholes, so here's the first shot across the bow.
Well, as you know, with Planet Albany, there's always something that makes the planet turn.
And it's this amazing view of D.C., and Eddie Vedder comes out, and he goes, "You have a cigarette?" And I've never smoked in my life, but if I had, I wish that was the moment.
And this strategy takes us from potholes to knotholes.
I would like to say it was a pleasure, Mr. Kim. But I'm on the road.
I'm David Lombardo, and this is Dispatches from Planet Albany, a podcast about power and politics in New York. And on this episode, we're checking in with Benji Federman, who works for the Senate Republicans by day and is the Broome County Republican chairman in what I imagine is most of his remaining free time. And he joins us on the show to talk about the GOP infrastructure in New York, as well as the party's path to statewide relevance and his own political journey. Welcome to the show, Benji, and thanks for making the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So it's my understanding that you've been the Broome County Republican chair since 2023 when you were just in your late 20s. So can you talk about your trajectory to getting to that point at such a young age?
Sure. So I was a senior at Binghamton University, volunteered on my first political campaign. Senator Tom Libous, unfortunately, was vacating his seat. And a young and up-and-comer named Fred Akshar was running for office for the first time, a deputy undersheriff, and walked into that campaign office, knew nothing about politics, knew nothing about government other than growing up in Albany and being around Planet Albany in my youth, but ultimately volunteered on that campaign, and that turned into a just wonderful 8-year tenure with Senator Akshar in Binghamton, traveling to Albany and doing grassroots politics in my free time. And so was able to really get to know the community, even though I was from Albany, met the donor community, met the grassroots supporters, and then ultimately the opportunity came up. My predecessor, Bijoy Datta, who is one of the premier consultants in New York State, he was stepping down to spend more time with family, and I seized on the opportunity, was the youngest Republican chairman elected, I think, at the time. And despite some maybe expressing their condolences, I've really enjoyed the opportunity to serve in this role. It's been a pleasure.
Well, what was the learning curve like either on that first campaign or as chair of the county now? Because I have to imagine you come with maybe certain preconceived notions, whether it's from your family, with your dad and grandfather being involved in politics, or what you see and how you might process other people's experiences. Because I think at my own time, I worked on a assembly campaign now 11 years ago, and my knowledge of campaigns was through the lens of a reporter or from watching The West Wing, and neither of those was particularly helpful when you actually have to get people to knock on doors or get something done with the Board of Elections. So what sort of learning curve was there for you, either on the election side of things or as chairman?
Yeah, sure. I mean, going from working from one member of the state Senate to having multiple bosses, we basically represent an entire constituency of Republicans who have competing viewpoints. And then ultimately, we have 100 plus elected officials in Broome County. And so my mission every single day waking up was to serve the people of the 52nd Senate District and Senator Fred Akshar. But, you know, as chairman, you have to get into every single municipality and help candidates, you know, win elections there.
And I also have to imagine you can't really play favorites, or at least you shouldn't be playing favorites if you want to have a strong party all across the county.
Yeah, that's right. I always say we're running as one team, one united ticket, and the success of somebody running for village trustee is the same as somebody running for county executive. So we try to keep that cohesion and unity, and that's how we keep everyone happy.
So that kind of gets into my next question, which is about your leadership style, because county chairs can take a variety of different approaches in terms of how hands-on or hands-off they want to be, what they want to specialize in. Maybe somebody's a really good communicator, maybe somebody's a really good infrastructure person. What is it that you bring that you think someone else might not have as a generic county chair?
Well, I just remain incredibly responsive to all of our elected officials, and I think people really appreciate that. I'm always going to pick up my phone, but let me just back up for a second. I'll tell you what the Broome GOP is very, very good at. We're good at finding candidates. We're good at raising as much money as humanly possible and then running strong grassroots campaigns to ultimately get our folks elected. We have a campaign operations team where we will fund mail programs and text message programs, robocalls, and actually do that for our candidates. So we expect our candidates to go out there, knock on doors, be great community representatives, but then we are backfilling their campaign efforts with those tangible voter contact programs. And of course, like I said, that all takes money, and we have had tremendous success with our fundraising. Like I mentioned earlier, I was able to really get into Broome County and meet the donor community and across the southern tier for that matter. And it's just one of my top priorities. We're having a Christmas reception tomorrow night, and I take the fundraising very, very seriously throughout the year so we can fund those campaigns.
Who are the donors that you turn to in Broome County? Because that's not necessarily thought of as the wealthiest area, particularly in contrast with Republicans trying to hit up, say, parts of New York City. Is it just like the Speedy Sauce empire? You want to get that money?
No, it's a combination. I mean, we have grassroots fundraisers. I mean, we've really upped our game in terms of our small dollar program. But with that said, of course, you have to go after some of the big heavy hitters. Labor unions are very supportive of our ticket because we have strong Republican elected officials who have reached out to labor, the business community, of course. And then, again, just the small dollar donors using some of our digital fundraising to bring people in.
Well, whether it's digital fundraising or any sort of infrastructure that's online, how much of the pitch that you make for yourself as chair stems around the fact that, hey, I'm a millennial, I understand this technology, and other chairs around the state who may be a little older, a little less technologically inclined, aren't going to be able to take advantage of this the same way that I can as someone who probably grew up on this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's all very user-friendly. I was just in Tioga County, my neighbor, getting their Republican committee up to speed on some of the tools that we use to make sure that everyone across the southern tier, all Republicans, can utilize that infrastructure, take proven donor lists, use WinRed, use Meta to bring new people in. And then ultimately, you need a compelling message to bring people in. And so we've been able to craft that message with the tools that we have, and then bring new donors in.
Well, I definitely want to talk about messaging, but I'm interested in this idea of Broome County working with Tioga County. Is that something you took on your own? Did Tioga County reach out to you? Did the New York GOP say, hey, Benji, can you go help your neighbors in the southern tier do this? How does that come together?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, I have just taken upon myself to be a natural leader in the southern tier. It's very important to Broome County's success that Tioga County is strong. Cortland County, we share a Senate district with Cortland County and Tompkins County. And, Broome County might be a little bit more red than Tompkins, as sure you can imagine.
Wee bit.
Yeah, but it's very important that we're communicating at all times, making sure we're inviting each other to our events and sharing ideas. So it's a combination of, the state party encouraging that, and then myself just reaching out because it's the right thing to do.
So in terms of messaging, what is the winning message for Republicans in Broome County, or maybe some of the municipalities in Broome County, like Binghamton, where you've been successful? Because obviously Broome County is kind of unique with the in voter enrollment. I think it's about split between Democrats and Republicans, with unaffiliated voters making up, I think, a little less than a quarter of the enrollment for the county. So do you tailor your message towards that, or is it the same talking points that you might hear in Saratoga County or Staten Island?
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. Jared Cram is the mayor of Binghamton. He just won re-election in a 2-1 Democrat city because he was the right candidate with the right message. And so it really boils down to experience first and foremost. I think more than ever, people want experienced leadership in these positions. But ultimately, elected officials and candidates have to have crossover appeal. And so what we saw in the Binghamton City Mayor's race was Jared Cram focused his message on public safety, housing, and quality of life and his experience. And so there was a lot of Democrats that ultimately voted for Mayor Cram because we made that pitch. Now, I'll just say this as well. It is critically important in politics these days to draw a strong contrast with your opponent. And so we're not, and we're not afraid to take an issue that we felt was damaging to our Democratic opponents across the county and put money behind that message in a well-crafted way. And so
what was that message in this race?
Yeah, I mean, we just thought that the Democratic opponent in the city of Binghamton was completely inexperienced. He was an activist who did not a job. And it was uncovered that he was saying racist things, and it was caught on video. So it was not, we were not afraid to inform the voters that this candidate was not qualified. He had these views, and we ultimately won by several hundred votes.
So why do you think there's the experience of success that you've had in Binghamton, whereas at the county level, there's a Democratic county executive and I believe a Republican legislature? Is this just, again, about the uniqueness of the candidate, with Jason Garner being someone who has that crossover appeal, or maybe the timing of his elections has been beneficial to Democrats, given maybe he's overlapped with blue versus red waves? I mean, what do you see as the difference in outcomes there?
It is timing. It is the type of candidate that Jason Garner is. Ultimately, we hold 3 out of the 4 countywide offices, even though Democrats outnumber Republicans. But,
narrowly.
Yes, narrowly. Ultimately, we have a supermajority on the county legislature. Right. We're very proud of that. And so, yeah, it is the type of candidate, the timing, and, the fact that the county executive does run in a presidential year also is challenging for Republicans as well.
Well, turning our perspective to statewide races, when Congresswoman Elise Stefanik announced her campaign for governor in November, she was able to tout your support, along with basically every other county GOP leader in New York. What made you want to come on board from the get-go, as opposed to waiting and see what field emerged? Or is that actually kind of what motivated you to get on board early, this idea that you wanted to have this show of support for the Congresswoman to prevent other people, like Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, from getting into the race and potentially creating a primary?
Well, I'll just say this first. I grew up in the same hometown as Elise Stefanik. She grew up in Selkirk. I grew up in Delmar, just nearby. She ran for Congress at 30 years old, just about my age, and she's inspired me. I mean, that takes guts in this business for a young woman to do that. And so, putting all the politics and the political jousting aside, just an inspiring person. And so, with that said, looking at her resume, the things that she has accomplished at such a young age, her strength, the fact that she's a young woman, I just think that she was the best. She is the best bet for our party to get behind, provide that unity for the party, and barnstorm ahead to Election Day.
Do you think a primary, which is still on the table with Blakeman playing footsie with a possible run as we talk on December 8th, do you think something like that is beneficial to the party in the sense that, hey, you get lots of chances to get your name out there, you become battle tested, or do you think it is ultimately a detriment because, say, in a primary you have to appeal to those primary voters, they're often more ideologically pure, and in a blue state like New York that can kind of create some awkward situations for the general election, and also there's the idea that maybe the party doesn't heal in the wake of a primary. How are you thinking about this possibility?
I think that every dollar spent on a primary is another dollar wasted not exposing Kathy Hochul and her failed policies. So that I'll just leave it at that. I think that we need to move forward as a united party and go on the offensive on Kathy Hochul's failed policies.
Do you think it's possible to have a primary where all of the Republicans adhere to the 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of fellow Republicans, or does a primary, by its very nature of being a competitive election, have to kind of become contentious?
No, I mean, I think that we need to have the best person in place to defeat Kathy Hochul. I personally think that is Elise Stefanik. A lot of the people on the ground in Broome County are expressing the same thing. I have Republican women who are knocking down our door at headquarters, getting ready to volunteer because they want a young woman to challenge Kathy Hochul. And so I'm optimistic that there won't be a primary. If there would be, I'm optimistic that it'll stay clean and the attacks will stay on Kathy Hochul's failed policies.
Well, let's stick with that idea of Congresswoman Stefanik being the best candidate that Republicans can put up in 2026, because coming into 2025, the conventional wisdom was that a candidate like Congressman Mike Lawler, who's at least perceived to be a moderate, you can debate about whether he actually is the better candidate in a deep blue state like New York. So given Stefanik's, say, rightward drift since 2014, as well as her embrace of President Trump, what do you see as her path to victory in New York? What do you think is that makes her the best possible candidate at this point for Republicans to put up?
Well, I'll just start by saying never underestimate Elise Stefanik. She, I've seen her in action. She has star power. She was down at our Broome County clam bake, and I can't tell you the energy that was in the room, the grassroots energy support that was there for her. So the base, for everything that I've seen is behind her. Now you got to appeal to the middle, and I think that Elise has the experience in Congress and the know-how to frame a message to appeal to those voters, basically. And I think there's Democrats out there that are also yearning for somebody who is not going to embrace Zohran Mamdani. I'll give you a quick example. There's many Upper East Side moms, my aunt being one of them, that is considering supporting Elise this year because of Zohran Mamdani's policies, blatant anti-Semitism. As a proud Jewish family, that's just not going to fly. And so you're going to see different interest groups come out and support a candidate like Elise Stefanik because of the failures of Kathy Hochul, because of the failures of the incoming administration of Zohran Mamdani, I believe. And, we're going to see a coalition build behind Elise.
Do you think she needs to moderate either her positions or her messaging in 2026? And I think about the latter in terms of, hey, you might not change a position, but maybe you don't bring it up as much, or maybe you change the framing of the way you might feel something. Because to this date, at this point, we have not seen that with Congresswoman Stefanik's campaign. I would say this is akin to what we would have seen in one of her congressional campaigns, where the electorate is very different in NY21 than it is across New York.
I think people are looking for authenticity now more than ever. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of a less authentic elected official than Kathy Hochul. She's
really?
Flip-flop views. I mean, I don't know what your sense is up in Albany, but I
guess I'm too cynical. I think a lot of them are pretty inauthentic.
Sure. Maybe I got to get to Albany a little bit more often, but
said no one ever.
I still have family in Albany, so it's
okay. So you have a reason.
Make it a twofer, but listen, the campaign is going to be run. The messages are already being defined. And I just think people are looking for authenticity in who is going to look into that camera, shake voters' hands, and be perceived as the most authentic elected official. I think Elise Stefanik is more authentic than Kathy Hochul.
Stefanik has talked about turning out GOP voters who cast their ballot in 2024 for Trump, but might have sat out the gubernatorial election when Lee Zeldin was on the ballot for the Republicans. And I looked at Broome County and saw that while Donald Trump did worse in terms of a percentage, he did get, I think, about 7,000 or more votes than Zeldin got 2 years earlier. So how do you connect with those people? How do you make them care about the Republican candidate? Because we've seen, not just in New York, but in the country more broadly, that you can have the Donald Trump endorsement, you can do your best impersonation of Donald Trump. Unless you are Donald Trump, Republicans might not necessarily want to come out and vote for you or care about your election.
Yeah, I mean, that's the golden question, right? How do we get our low propensity voters out to vote? And I think it goes back to raising as much money as humanly possible and using different techniques to get out there. Now, Elise Stefanik is going to galvanize the base. There's no doubt about it. She has those credentials. People are motivated to volunteer for her. and I think people are going to be motivated to vote for her. But we also have to give them a reason why not to vote for Kathy Hochul too, and that can also be a motivating force sometime. Seeing those failed policies, Zohran Mamdani, the result of the New York City mayor's race. When Republicans don't show up to vote, this is what we have: an elected socialist. We have an elected socialist just to our north in Tompkins County. The Common Council elected somebody who is a communist. I think she was promoting herself as a communist. So that's certainly going to be something that the Broome County Republicans inform the voters about as well.
For the holiday season, Dispatches from Planet Albany is offering a special gift when you support the show. A $50 contribution or recurring commitment of $5 a month gets you a 12x9 poster celebrating life in Planet Albany. More information, including a link to donate, can be found wherever you listen to this podcast. Support for Dispatches from Planet Albany provided by National Fuel. Natural gas delivers affordable, reliable energy to millions of New Yorkers every day. Trusted utilities are committed to keeping homes warm, businesses running, and communities thriving. Natural gas is a critical part of an all-of-the-above energy strategy, one that prioritizes sustainability for the Empire State's future. Learn more at betterplannobans.com. Also on the ballot in 2026 is going to be what is expected to be a contentious race for Congress with incumbent Democrat Josh Riley running for re-election. Is that a race that you think can motivate Republican voters to then turn out for the gubernatorial election, or do you see the gubernatorial election having more of a trickle-down effect on that race for Congress? I guess the question is, which is going to be more of a driving factor for people?
To be determined. We'll have to see how the campaigns are run. I think the congressional race is going to be another multi-million dollar race because it is such a closely contested seat as far as enrollment goes. And so, my hope is that all eyes are on Broome County next year. Hopefully too much money is spent here, bashing Republicans, although I'm not holding my breath. But we're going to withstand any, national Democratic attack on our candidates. Regardless of how much money is spent.
Historically, these midterm elections are not great for the party that controls the White House, and we've seen this dating back through 2010 here in New York, pretty clear ebb and flow. So what are you going to do, if anything, that you can do about a potential blue wave in 2026? What sort of, dams or bulwarks can you build to prepare for that idea of people turning out for Democrats because of a national mood?
Yeah, it really comes down to preparing our candidates now. Time is one of the most valuable assets that we have when we run campaigns and we plan for future elections. And so I'm already meeting with municipal leaders. Our biggest municipality, the town of Union, has a full Republican board and a Republican town supervisor. We're getting a beg letter out the door, a fundraising letter. We have to use the time that we have between now and then to prepare our candidates, to leave no stone unturned in making sure that we're checking all our boxes. There's no doubt that we saw some Democratic wins this past election. We're taking that as a warning sign to basically not take anything for granted.
Thinking about a Republican pathway to the executive mansion, the calculus that we often hear is that while you need to run up the score in upstate New York, you still need to make some inroads in New York City, and you need to do well in the suburbs. And given that issue of time that you just raised, how would you want Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, assuming she's the GOP nominee, to spend her time? Does she need to have her campaign with her actually in Broome County to drive out Broome County votes, or do you think there's other ways to get those voters out and her time is better spent, say, in the New York City suburbs? How would you advise her, and the fact that she's just one person?
Well, I have full trust in her campaign team. My Erie County Republican chairman colleague Michael Crocker's come onto the campaign as campaign manager. I think he's going to do an outstanding job in that role. The quality of the people that she has surrounded herself with, I have full trust in them to make those decisions and making sure the Congresswoman spends her time as wisely as possible. But the short answer is she has to be everywhere. One vote in Broome County is the same as one vote in Nassau or Brooklyn. Obviously, as far as population center goes, she wants to spend more time where more people are. But she has shown throughout her time in Congress, she's traveled an incredibly large district for years now. I've full faith in her to travel this state as effectively as possible.
So we've mentioned New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani a few times. I think even in some of the messaging I saw around that Binghamton mayor's race, you guys were linking the Democratic candidate to Zohran Mamdani. I have no idea if those two have even met or had a conversation before, but is there a question of how much mileage you can get out of Zohran Mamdani? Is there a point where that has diminishing returns, or do you expect that Zohran Mamdani is going to appear on every single attack mailer aimed at Democrats the way we might have seen Sheldon Silver in the past or Bill de Blasio? I mean, is this just red meat for the base, or do you think that, like you said with regards to your aunt, is something that has a broader appeal as well?
Well, to your first point, Miles Burnett, the Democratic candidate for mayor of Binghamton, was down in New York City at a Working Families Party event, and they had their arms wrapped around each other. And so
probably best friends. They probably vacation together.
Exactly. So, I mean, going back to cross-party appeal, Zohran Mamdani does not have cross-party appeal. His policies are unpopular with soft Democrats, Republicans, and certainly blanks and independents.
Although he is allegedly connected with those, say, Obama-Trump voters. It's hard to really unpack how big of a population that is, but allegedly there are those, say, non-traditional voters that he's appealed to.
Sure. I mean, it was a populist message about affordability. Sure. And heck, I mean, some of the policies, from an upstate New York, I'm like, yeah, go for it down in New York City. But it depends all on how we educate the voters on Zohran Mamdani. I think in Broome County, he's probably still a relatively unknown figure. Yeah. Certainly when he gets into office next year, he'll have a little bit more of a daily profile as he rolls out some of his agenda. But it's really going to be about how well do Republicans educate the voters on his failed policies, and if that's still a good issue for us next year.
What if they're not failed policies, though? He hasn't become mayor yet. And what if the policies work? Is that a problem if you spend all your time bashing the guy and then somehow New York City becomes amazing in the eyes of everyone across the state?
Hey, we'll certainly pivot. I want to win races, so I'm not going to attach myself to any issue or strategy. If we have to pivot, we will. Our job is to elect Republicans.
So I think there's obviously 2026 expectations for the gubernatorial election, which I think are different than, say, Republican ability to control the Senate or Assembly, where most people, if they're being honest, will say, yes, Democrats are going to have those chambers after 2026. Maybe there's some room around the margins for Republicans to grow their minorities. But in the longer term, what can Republicans do to potentially have majorities in either of those houses? I mean, obviously you're way away from New York City, so there's not a lot you can do there. But maybe in some of these upstate cities like Binghamton, Syracuse, Utica, Buffalo, is there a way for the Republican message to resonate more? And if so, what is that message? Does the message need to be changed?
Well, the leaders in both the Senate and Assembly are doing a great job recruiting candidates, raising money, and putting forward the best field possible in tough conditions. You had victories in New York City for state legislature, Steve Chan, Lester Chang, and so we're going to.
That's a short list in a state with 213 members in the legislature.
I got more for you, but I know we're short on time.
Sure.
But we, it boils down to raising as much money as humanly possible, fielding strong crossover appeal, common sense candidates, and running strong campaigns. So, I look to Elise Stefanik actually as a leader who last year made significant investments around the state to ensure that there was down ballot success. We have Binghamton Mayor Jared Krim, who would be a great Senate candidate. And so we need to start planting those seeds. I'll give you a little history lesson, although I'm sure you already know. Bill Powers in the early 90s really did a great job at electing county executives, getting county legislature majorities, starting at that grassroots level. And then ultimately, a guy named George Pataki walked onto the scene Mayor Peekskill, assembly member, state senator, and then he became our next governor. And so we need to build the bench, essentially, is what I'm getting at. And, thankfully to Elise Stefanik, we started to build that bench this past year. We got to keep it up.
Yeah, we've seen that idea of a bench be particularly meaningful, say, in the Hudson Valley, where Rob Rollison was the mayor of a blue city in Poughkeepsie and now represents a state Senate district that has more Democrats than Republicans. And I'm curious, how do you replicate that? How do you convince people to run for some of these town or city elections and actually ensure that those are good candidates and maybe not necessarily the ideologically most pure candidates?
It's one of the most challenging things that I do and my colleagues do is recruit candidates, because I just believe it's harder than ever with just the negativity in our world and surrounding politics these days to get people to jump into these races. I can always raise $1. I can always recruit another volunteer to show up to a get out the vote effort. Getting somebody to pass petitions and put their name on the ballot is incredibly challenging. I don't want to give away all my secrets, but it's just building relationships, showing there's a path to victory, and then ultimately having county parties show the candidates that they're going to have the backup support, the financial support, the ground game, all of that blending together to a successful candidate. When that happens on election night, when you're able to hold that person's hand up in the air, that's a pretty damn good feeling.
Well, we often hear that the Democratic Party is the big tent party, and you can look at someone like Zohran Mamdani, who could be elected mayor of New York City, but probably could not get elected mayor of Buffalo, for example. Is this an issue where Republicans have not had a broad enough set of opportunities for candidates, where they allow the candidates to be reflective of the constituencies that they're appealing to, allowing for maybe not the most ideologically pure candidates? Or do you feel like the party is very welcoming and that maybe you are pro-choice, or maybe you have a different take on immigration and you can still get the Republican support and you can still win, say, a Republican primary?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be that perfect blend. We have all sorts of different types of candidates, people who are very strong in their conservative Republican values, and then other times people who might deviate from that. Jared Cram, our mayor of Binghamton, is pro-choice. That's just how he feels personally, and we're not going to tell Mayor Cram that he can't run for Binghamton mayor. That has nothing to do with his credentials of leading a city with a $100 million budget. That's what we care about: fiscal responsibility, making sure that law enforcement, the Binghamton police have what they need to be successful, even when the Binghamton City Council tries to defund the police. So that's ultimately why we were successful in that race. And I feel that we are the Big Tent party, and we'll welcome anyone.
So you are notably a young Republican, and obviously earlier this year there was the scandal with the leaked chat with young Republicans from all over the country that Politico New York reported on. I think you at one point basically said that the chat was despicable and it was an easy decision to vote to close down that chapter. How do you see the young Republicans picking up in the wake of that, and is that going to be a problem moving forward at all?
No, it won't be a problem. I mean, I stand by what I said. I thought the chat was despicable, and frankly, it's the end of the conversation. I can imagine
you'd want it to be the end of the conversation, but I mean, has it necessarily been? I mean, are you getting questions from people who say, "Hey, is this what we stand for? How do we differentiate ourselves from this X, Y, and Z?"
I mean, I think we differentiate ourselves by doing the good work that we need to do to elect Republicans and be good people. I mean, again, it was despicable, and we're focused on paving a path forward to get new young people involved into the party. That's not who we are. And just to your question, we need a strong leader to come forward and to serve in that role and put the pieces back together. I think the young Republicans play a very important role in terms of our grassroots efforts and building that bench. Frankly, I've served in the Young Republicans with Brian Marr, who's an assembly member who I believe is serving overseas right now. Mm-hmm. And so, that's somebody who I look to, and hopefully somebody like me and Jared Cram, that we are the face of the Young Republicans. We are moving our communities forward and doing that good work.
What do you want to do in your political future? When are you going to run for office? You're a good talker.
I appreciate it. No, I mean, I've really settled into this role. I love serving Republican leader Rob Ortt in the conference. Never say never, I suppose. Binghamton is a beautiful place. I don't know. Albany was home for a long time. I don't know if I want to come back.
Well, you could start low. You got to start, in some sort of town position, some sort of city position, and then work your way up.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it.
Well, do you want to be the head of the Republican Party? Do you want to be the person who's behind the scenes primarily?
I've found a very good comfortability zone in kind of being behind the scenes, although, the chairman's position is a little bit more forward facing. But stay tuned.
Yeah?
Stay tuned, I guess. Yeah.
What's the time frame for staying tuned? Should I watch for the next decade, or should I keep an eye out on a shorter time frame?
I just got married.
Congratulations.
Soon. We bought a house. So no, it's been fun. I love politics. You mentioned my grandfather, my father, both in politics. It's just come very naturally to me, and I just want to continue doing good by the party. By first and foremost, elect a Republican governor next fall.
Well, we've been speaking with Benji Federman. He is the Broome County Republican chair. Benji, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it.
A lot of fun. Great conversation. Thanks, David.